Just tell Vanessa, just tell Vanessa. Just tell Vanessa now, tell Vanessa now. Just tell Vanessa, just tell Vanessa.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Tell Vanessa. Tonight we do things a little bit different, so sit back, relax and enjoy. Tell Vanessa.
Just tell Vanessa, just tell Vanessa.
The Black Lives Matter movement has grown in momentum here in the UK. We've had thousands of people take to the streets in protest against the killings in America. But what does the Black Lives Matter movement actually mean to us here in the UK? Is it about police brutality and institutional racism? Is it about us standing side by side with our brothers and sisters overseas? Or can it be defined by what's happening here on our streets with our youngsters killing themselves through knife and gun crime? So my question this evening is, the Black Lives Matter movement, what does it actually mean to us here in the UK? Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Please tell the viewers and the audience who you are and what you're doing.
I'm Pastor Bossman from Dynamics. I'm the youth mentor.
Well, my name is Sheldon Thomas and I run an organisation called Gangs Line, and we run gangs prevention programmes and we train professionals to understand gangs and gang mentality.
Okay. I'm Daniel Seven. I'm an entrepreneur and a creative director.
My name is Delroy and I am a support housing worker for ex-offenders and also a foster carer.
So you've all heard my opening statement. The Black Lives Matter movement, what has it actually got to do with us here in the UK? Now, Daniel, you set up the UK support group for the Black Lives Matter. Tell us a little bit about what the Black Lives Matter movement has to do with us.
Okay, for me, I started this group out of kind of the fact that seeing all the footage and what's going on in America, and what's always been going on, they've always been talking about it, but now we've got camera phones, be able to see it firsthand and live it with them. I can tell it hurts many of us that are over here, even though it's not, I guess, over in this show. And I went to a place where people can talk about it, connect with it, and just really kind of, be able to hear opinions and find solutions on how we can stand side by side with our brothers and sisters in the US.
But the Black Lives Matter movement, do you think that many people have just been jumping on the bandwagon at the moment? Because we've had a lot of killings that have been happening on our streets with our youngsters, and the people haven't been involved like what they have been. For example, we've had Mezi Mohammed, which was a youngster that got killed in Liverpool, and he died under suspicious circumstances through the police. And where were the people standing up, marching in their numbers, in their thousands about that?
Yeah, I think that this issue over here is, again, this kind of shows that we can stand side by side, and when something becomes big enough, when we see kind of unity in another area, we feel like we can unify as well.
Thank you, Daniel. Sheldon, what do you think of the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, I mean, in America, obviously, they have got some reasons, and I don't think anyone would suggest for 1 second that police should go around killing people of any colour, whether it be black, Asian, whites, Hispanics. We all know that. And we also know that America is entrenched in institutional racism as well. We know there's this part of the judicial system, the amount of young men, especially young black African Americans, who've been locked up in jail. We know that there's an issue there. But I just think sometimes we tend to jump on things that I used to talk about in the 70s, about institutional racism, the brutality of police officers, which my generation faced here. And I just think that we have more pressing problems, immediate problems to do with us as a race of people here in the UK and in America.
Can I just ask a question? So you said that we've got a lot more pressing problems here. What do you actually mean by pressing problems?
Our youth are on a self-destruction. Not all, but we have a minority of young people who have been caught up in what I would call a legacy of my generation left from the gang era in the 70s, where many of us lost our way, especially myself. I'll speak openly about how I lost myself due to the gang violence. And there's a legacy being left over from that. And that has not been dealt with in terms of us reflecting back on ourselves about the damage we done to our own people. And I think for me, that when you have so many young people, especially young black kids, killing each other on the mainland Britain, up and down, and I'm not suggesting that white kids don't kill each other. I'm not suggesting that Asians don't kill each other, because they're doing that in Tower Hamlets, they're doing that in Tooting Bec, and down in Liverpool, we've got the white gangs, Croxteth and the Noggerheads gangs. They're killing each other. What we're talking about here, there is a large percentage of us who are disproportionately killing each other at an alarming rate, and yet I do not see the same enthusiasm, the same emotion that is being directed to Black Lives Matter, coming out and looking at how we're going to deal with the self-destruction amongst the minority of our young black kids.
That's a good point to bring Delroy in. Delroy, tell us a little bit about what you think of the Black Lives Matter, and tell us about your story.
Without taking up too much time, my story started in 2004 when my son was ganged up on. He was beaten up, stabbed in the heart, shot in the back and thrown in a river. At that time, I didn't understand what was going on. So I went into Felton Prison and I gathered as many youths as possible, and I, sat them in a circle and I said, look, this is what's happened, this is, a murder that's happened, and I shared everything about how I felt when I was burying him, went into detail. And I started to learn from what they were saying to me that they themselves has lost the respect for parents.
Okay.
A lot of it starts there. They lost the respect for parents, they dishonour their mother, father, and it starts there, and then they start to join a gang to get appreciated, to feel that they're part of something. And then they're moving on from there. And if it ain't a gang, I've spoke to guys that did arson, and they did it because they felt, no one's listening to me, I need to do this. Then I went on to working on campaigns. We did marches, we did various stuff with Don't Trigger Mama, various Not Another Drop, we did our own marches, and I even went into the mayor's office, we sat down, we discussed a lot of stuff, went into Parliament, discussed a lot of stuff. But what I gathered, the information I gathered from it all, is that it's a not one issue, it's a lot
A combination of issues coming together.
Loads.
We have a problem with absent fathers, and I think that a young person growing up in an unbalanced home, and I'm not suggesting that single parents, single mothers cannot raise a child. That's not what I'm suggesting here. I am saying that there is a correlation between the rise in violence and the amount of young men in prison and absent fathers. If you look at the statistics in Feltham, there is a high proportion of them that are coming from absent fathers, or absent where there's no father in the household. We cannot discourage that or pretend that is not existing.
I think.
Can I just say, Pastor Bosman, what do you think about the statement that Sheldon's just made?
That, to some extent, I believe it's true as to, it all begins from the home.
Okay.
Because when the home is sound, society will be sound. And when the home is broken, society will be broken. And I believe that we have to also look inward as a community, because when we tend to always blame others, I'm not saying people are not responsible for some of the things that are happening, but we have to also look inward, sit down, take stock of our own selves, our lives, and our families, and see where we've fallen short. And
do you think it's easy to actually say that the problem that we're having at the moment is with the youth crime is because there's a lack of fathers in the household? Because the reason why I say it's easy, because we're almost kind of criminalising a whole group of youths and saying that this is the reason why. Yeah. But there's lots of other reasons.
But we're not suggesting
there's
that.
Education as well. There's the education system. There's the housing system.
But
at
education,
the same time.
we're not. No one is discouraging that education, the system, and
role models, music
does not play a part. But you cannot raise a child in an unstable environment, in the home I'm talking specifically, and then expect a fantastic outcome. Now let me explain what I mean, because I don't want no one to think that I'm talking about single mothers in a bad light. What I'm trying to say is that society has almost accepted men take no responsibility. They've almost accepted that. It's like when you meet a child in school and he hasn't got a dad, it's like it's the norm. It's like, oh, it's okay. But actually, it's not okay.
I feel like things have changed, not because the home, because I grew up in a single parent home. You know, my dad's in prison due to violence and stuff like that. I could have grew up that way as well. And I know many others, my generation, that had no fathers. But it wasn't like how they are now. And I feel like it's more to do with society as a whole and role models as a whole.
This is probably a good time, actually, to bring in some emails. One of the emails from a lady I received, my son was stabbed in front of a group of youths. When the police came and questioned the youths and my son, no one would say anything. We eventually had to move out of London because I feared for my life. I feel so sad for our community due to the state we're in. Yes, I care about the Black Lives Matter movement, but I care about my son's life more. How do we sort this?
Well,
My case, 2004, is still going on. We've got no results. We've had police after liaison after liaison officer after liaison officer, and nothing's been solved. They've had arrests, but they've let them go, and it's just going on and on and on. And for me personally, I would prefer if the youth of today, and I know it may be controversial with a lot of people, but the youth of today need to become snitches.
Yeah, I agree.
With protection.
I unfortunately,
Yeah,
and I think
they need to become
I think
snitches
there's
to
some
kill
truth.
this.
I think there's some truth
Yeah,
to
they
that.
need to become snitches, as in from today. Yeah, right now, to get results. And I know it's affected me, my family, and everything. And people got to understand, when someone gets stabbed, shot, and dealt with in such a way, like a piece of meat, people got to understand that there's a ripple effect to that. And for people to just be around that kind of scene and not say anything.
Some of it is actually to do with
understand
fear.
that.
The
Yeah.
youngsters are actually scared to say anything. What do you do in that situation? Because this is a woman that's actually had to move from her home because she's scared. She feared for her son's life. What do you do in a
I've
situation
got
like
one
that?
example. I speak to ex-offenders daily. I'm with them daily. When they used to be selling the drugs, they'd have one phone for dealing, one phone for personal.
Yeah.
Why don't you, the snitch, get one phone, put the chip in, snitch, have another snitch phone, throw it away, gone. And then the police will go and investigate, and I understand that the police, it's hard for the police to move on that unless the person's going to come forward
There's another
or
way.
going to court.
There's another way.
Yeah.
Crime Stoppers, and I know a lot of people don't understand this, but Crime Stoppers is not linked to the police.
Yes.
A lot of people think Crime
That's true.
Stoppers is.
Most
but
people
it's-
do.
But
That's
it's
true.
not.
That's true.
I can say categorically
true.
that Crime Stoppers is nothing to do with the police.
No matter what, you do not snitch, you do not tell. Yeah? You don't, that's the code that they live by. So even if you have to go and take some time inside, you don't open your mouth. You keep it to yourself.
That's the only limit.
But then it comes back down to the very point that I'm saying, that we have pressing issues here that have to be dealt with. We're back to that point where, and we're not tarnishing all young people, we're just talking about the ones involved in this lifestyle.
That's right.
So I just want to make that
That's
point
right. That's
across.
right.
So is there a lack of momentum within the black community for the killings around the youth violence?
It's a broken picture of yourself. It's like if you, for some reason, if you look in the mirror and all you see is broken glass, the way you look at yourself would be distorted. And unfortunately, how society has pictured it and how we kind of look at ourselves or what we think of ourselves is so broken that we think this is manhood or this is how I should be. This is what I'm going to amount to. Because you don't see much leaders, I don't know, like Bill Gates, Black Bill Gateses or whatever, that they could look up to and be like,
And what's your opinion, Delroy?
The man in the mirror. Michael Jackson sung it. That's what you need to do. You need to look in the mirror and truthfully ask yourself, what have I done today where I've helped someone?
Yeah, that's right.
Where I've put some good words forward or whatever it takes. Gave someone some money, whatever it takes. Everybody just looked in the mirror at themselves and say, what can I do?
And Mr. Bossman, do you think there's a lack of momentum within the black community?
Lack of momentum, yes. But there's an adage, there's an African adage, that if you're waiting for somebody to help you climb a tree, you wait for a very long time. You either start and somebody gets there, they can push you.
So that's a great place to stop. We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we're going to take some questions from the audience.
Just tell Vanessa, just tell Vanessa. Just tell Vanessa, just tell Vanessa.
Welcome back, and our first question from the audience is from a lady called Lydia.
Hello, I have a question related to today's theme. So, do you think that the Black Lives Matter movement is US specific? If not, how do you think that authorities in the UK, so like the government, politicians and police, can do something to help make a change and take a stand?
So we're going to give that question to Daniel.
Okay. I feel like Black Lives Matter is a US-specific issue. However, I feel like, as I said before, the world's getting smaller, and because of the issue being so vast and seemingly there's no justice there, that if we can pressure our government or other governments around the world to put pressure on the US government to change things.
Has anyone else got anything they want to add?
I would add to Daniel's point, which you made quite well, about putting pressure on the government of America to change things. I think in order for that to happen, we need to be much more unified. And I don't think at this point in juncture that we're unified, even in America, as African Americans, or here as African Caribbeans, Black British, Africans, whatever you want to call ourselves, we're not as unified. So the argument of Black Lives Matter becomes weakened if we want to attract people to put pressure on government about injustice in the world.
Okay.
So when we're talking about unification and getting people together, I grew up with that song, Free Mr. Mandela, that went global. White, black, Indian, Chinese, no matter where you come from, you heard about that.
Song, yeah.
And it put pressure on Africa to make a decision. It can happen, but it's a lot of work, and it can happen.
We've got another question from Asala.
Yes, hi. What do you think of the accusation that the Black Lives Matter movement is being compared to a terrorist group?
I can see that you want to answer this.
Ludicrous, for one. I feel like, yeah, as I said, this has happened before with the Black Panther movement. They shut them down for the same kind of accusations. But it's funny that, for instance, the KKK, for instance, can run as such a hate group and such a terrorising people for years, but not get shut down or not have that accusation. We see it with ISIS, like there's so much, but there's other people that do worse.
But what do you say about then the killings of the police officers?
Again, I don't condone any kind of killings. I feel like whatever's happening, justice, like if they're going to get justice for it, Black people should get justice for it. It's a different situation when, you see it so much happening at such a large rate, and there's not one there's no retribution to it, It's just open.
Well, we do have another question from Farron Morgan.
Hi, my question to the panel, as a black community, what do you think we could be or should be doing to help tackle the issue of black on black crime in the UK?
That is where Dynamics comes in, because we are into a couple of projects. We are into the boxing club, where we gather children from the age of 4 to 24 who are into boxing. But at the moment we've got a tiny place, but it can accommodate up to about 60 people, and we work in partnership with the Met Police and the local MP, Helen.
This is multifaceted. So
right.
We talked about the lack of fathers, but it also includes, look at our housing stock at the moment. Some of the housing that people live in, they look like prisons, and you've got people growing up in these estates where they actually look like miniature prisons, Look at the education system. You've got people still going to school, but they can't even come out of the system and they're able to read, they're able to write. So it's not just a problem with the fathers, it's a problem with the education, it's a problem with the role models, with housing. But we need to be working together around all of that.
We all look good driving nice cars and wearing flash clothes and going to the latest club But yet, when it comes to paying for education for our kids, that's the least. That's the least what we do.
Okay,
And
but that's not everybody.
No,
And
no,
look, but we have to be clear. That's not everybody.
But what we're talking about, you mentioned education, and we cannot keep pretending that the system is to blame.
But I'm not saying that the system's to blame, though, Sheldon.
What I'm saying is, where is the ownership of me, Sheldon, the dad, to make sure my child goes to school and then comes home and get extra tuition so that my child stands a fighting chance? You've heard the saying, when we grew up in this country, there was a saying, you have to do better than the English person.
We need to rebuild a mirror, or we need to create a better mirror than we've had. So if we don't create a new mirror of great leaders, of great role models that people can see that actually I can do more, I can do better, actually there's another path from this, and unite, then we can actually fight this whole black and black culture.
Can I just actually get some questions from the audience, because I can see some people have actually got their hands up.
My name's Danielle. My question is to Sheldon, actually. I just wanted to say, if you are somebody from the system, so you've been in the care system and you've been abused and you have low self-esteem, obviously you found that inner strength to go back to education, but what if you don't have that inner strength? What if you're broken to the point of beyond compare, you're suicidal? What do you do then?
To answer your question, I actually didn't find it. I had help from a man called Bernie Grant. He was a black MP. He then took me to America to meet with a man called Jesse Jackson. So I was mentored. And that's the reason why I talk about role models. Right. And I agree with everything you were saying about when you're damaged to that point, you need assistance, you need help. And this is why I'm always talking about men and women going back into the community to help those who are damaged. Bernie Grant was never a gang member. He was an MP. But he saw something inside of me.
There's no way here that it's like, focusing on everyone learning everything and understanding, even understanding white history, understanding black history, or whatever it is in the world, really understanding it and using that education system. Because I feel like here it's very kind of...
But don't you think that it's some of the responsibility of your parents to teach you some of that? Because I know when I came home from school in the evenings, I had to sit down and read with my dad. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't reading, I was reading books about Africa, and he would make me sit down, and every night after school I had to read about different villages, about what was happening. So that's where I got my education and my learning.
But what happens when you haven't got that? What happens when there's no parent to teach you that? Or like you said, before, people are broken beyond despair. We need to have that infrastructure.
Well, we need to have both. So we need to have the infrastructure in place, but we do need parents to take responsibility, because the education can't always be outside of the home.
Yeah. From the home, we have organizations and institutions that can also offer help. The church is an institution that can also offer help as well when it comes to mentorship and also educational stuff that can help out to educate people, to groom people. Life will not give you what you want. You have to fight for it.
How do you think we can restore the faith within black and mixed minorities within the justice system?
I believe we need more men and women from our communities getting involved in those systems. You can't fight a war from outside. You fight it from within. And I think that this whole idea of us not joining the police force is ludicrous. We should join the police force, because the way to stop racism is bringing more of us within that system.
Can I say something?
Of course you can.
Right. We, as whether black, white, Indian, Chinese, wherever it is, as black people, the guy will walk on the street and he'll put his hoodie up and he's labelled straight away as this is a thug, this is a person, on a whole. There's people walking on the other side of the road when they see gangs walking like that with the hoodies on. So, like I shared with you before, David Cameron made a statement, hug the hoodie. What do you think he meant? He meant go towards the hoodie, sit there and bring something to them. Whether or not it's in an organisation or institution, whatever it is, you can do it yourself.
So we're coming to the end of the show now, and I go back to the opening question. The Black Lives Matter movement, is it relevant to us here in the UK? Start with you, Pastor Bosman.
I don't think it's relevant, but we can take a clue from what is happening in America, because as my brother said, Sheridan mentioned earlier on, you cannot pick what is happening in the States and start it all over here. It's not going to work. It's not something that we can pursue, but we can better our lives, because I believe that if it's got to do by yourself. Your self-reflection. Take a stock of your life as a person, as a family, as a society, as a community. And that's where dynamics comes in. That is what we're trying to change, the mindset of the gangs, of the children, of the youth. We can do something better for ourselves and our community.
Thank you. Sheldon?
As a race of people, if we're going to look at it. First, as I said to Daniel earlier, I think in my generation, we all went to church. And I know a lot of people may not like the sound of this and people might get upset, but I do believe in the 70s, that is what held us together, in the 60s and the 70s. And we've moved so far from it and become so fragmented. And that fragmentation has caused us to now not have the love that we once may have had. I remember walking down the road and you used to see a brother, hail him up. You didn't even know him. You didn't even know you would hail him up. These days, everybody's walking around angry. Not everybody, sorry, but a lot of people, I just think love is missing from our community. And I think that once that is missing, it's going to be hard for us to start taking on what other people are dealing with in other countries, because we lack unity and we lack the love.
Thank you, Sheldon.
I agree. I also feel like it's not just a US issue, but it's a world issue. And I feel like if we can learn as people in general to stand up against what's wrong and fight for what's right together, no matter what race you are, then I feel like Black Lives Matter is a concern for us over here.
Delroy?
I, from hearing what you've been saying and what Daniel's been saying, Black Lives Matter, yes, it has relevance in discussing things like that, because like what you're saying before, it may cause other people other than black to step up and do something. That in that direction, yes. Mm-hmm. For the UK, like what everyone else is saying, Sheldon-wise, is we need to really hit some issues over here. Black lives do matter in the UK, and they need to be addressed by not just black people, white people, every race needs to address issues concerning how black people is treated.
I'd like to thank all our panel guests and thank the audience for taking part. If you want to be part of the discussion, you can tweet us or you can go to our Facebook page. Thank you.
Just tell Vanessa, just tell Vanessa.
We've come to the end of another great show. I'd like to thank all our guests and thank our audience this evening. If you want to get involved in the discussion, the details are at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and good night.
Just tell Vanessa, just tell Vanessa. Just tell Vanessa, just tell Vanessa. Just tell Vanessa now, tell Vanessa now. Just tell Vanessa, just tell Vanessa. Just tell Vanessa, just tell Vanessa now. Tell Vanessa.